It's been said that outside of Ireland, and particularly in America, that use of the word Ireland raises very positive thoughts in people's minds. A romantic and mystical land blessed with clean air and misty green pastures. A country of wit and charm, music and fun. Caint agus ceol, as we say. Conversely, the word Irish gives a very negative impression. A warring nation of drunkards and blackguards, of tribal and aggressive religious bigots. A land where the Gambine politician is king, or at the very least, crown prince in waiting to an absentee Roman pope.
Young people of Ireland, I love you.
Needless to say, none of this is true.
Start. Here's a good stick to beat the lovely lady.
Well, one thing that is true is that all these model Irish, and many more besides, have been trooped out down all the years in verse and song and play and picture. So maybe the real truth is that people have been listening and looking for so long that the truth has actually been forgotten.
It is like coming home after a long journey.
We Irish have a long history of immigration. For as far back as records go, the Irish have traveled to and settled in all four corners of the globe. A living testament to this fact are the countless millions of people around the world who are proud and happy and perfectly entitled to lay claim to their Irish heritage. And for many of these people, the most obvious representation of this heritage is the music. The music is part of what we are. The sound of the fiddle, the bodhrán, the pipes and whistle has the unique ability to transform any house, any room, a corner of any pub, however far away on whatever continent, into a little piece of land that will be, however momentarily, forever Ireland. And so here, glorying in its slanted and colourful confusion, is a different kind of truth.
All the night that you told me, all your loving was mine, and I wanted to listen to all of your life. I could never imagine when I felt so high that there could be somebody new, better than you in my life.
May it be a presidency where I, the president, can sing to you, citizens of Ireland, the joyous refrain of the 14th century Irish poet, as recalled by W.B. Yeats. I am of Ireland.
And the holy land of Ireland. And time runs on, cried she. Come out of charity and
Dance with me in Ireland. Garamila Mahagiv Galer.
Kate a hestro, withdrawn and lower the hand, body McRoby.
All your loving was mine.
No country in the world, in the history of the world, has endured the hemorrhage which this island endured over a period of a few years of so many of her sons and daughters.
I don't know. Maybe it's just us. Was it him or what? You just take it for one of those now. You close your eyes and you cast your mind back 30 years. And you see and hear what you want to see and hear.
Well, I have a problem that distinguishes me from a huge amount of Irish people, from most Irish people, and that's that I'm a composer. And the fact is that my music is Ireland to me. I have terrible problems with Irish identity, but I have no problems with Irish identity in relation to music. Anuna is a classical music group in origin, in that most of the people in the group have had some form of classical training. And in fact, when we started the group initially, all of the group had classical training. I suppose because of the nature of the group, it gradually changed. It turned into something organic. It became almost like an expression of a part of Irish music which was missing. And that part was the ancient part. So my fascination was that there was a medieval music, and I was a composer. And the whole thing seems to have been an accident from there. All these very enthusiastic young people suddenly turned up on my doorstep and said, "Hi, I'm a physical fitness instructor. I want to be in your group." Or, "Hi, I'm an architect and I've never sung before, but I'd like to sing." And suddenly we had a group of people that just enjoyed being together, and everything gelled. Well, when we started performing the music we did, there was no Spanish monks. Media Vita was set a year and a half before the Gregorian chant album came out. What you have to remember with Anuna is that it is not a religious group, in that we don't perform religious music to revive it. We have to reach back to the past, to refer to it in relation to the present, because we tend in this country to deny the past, and the past is so rich and so important, and that is what Anuna is about.
He regret it to his dying day, if ever he lives that long.
I think the Irish psyche has been very severely damaged by the representations of it.
I think we're getting much better at it. There's a generation of people now in Ireland, filmmakers, record makers, book writers, television people, who are, without any embarrassment, now taking what they do and selling it around the world. I think the Irish are good traders, as well as good artists.
I think for a lot of time we aped what was going on in the rest of the world, and I think now we've just started doing our own thing as Irish people, and, you know, with a confidence.
I think people are a little bit tired of much of the kind of homogenized music that's happening in the general marketplace. And I think that people are looking more to their natural roots for a source of inspiration.
I think, you know, looking at Irish music as diddly idle music, I think that was our own inferiority complex. I don't think anybody else was calling it that.
Because there are other extremely sophisticated examples of Irish music, Anya, Clannad, music that many Americans might not even be aware is Irish, is selling very successfully in America, particularly Anya and Clannad.
We started off singing, I suppose, pop songs at the beginning. We even translated some, and we'd include some traditional songs within our program, but then discovered the rich, melodies and songs especially from Ulster. And we concentrated a lot on Donegal, where we come from. We didn't really realise we had a sound until somebody pointed it out to us, and that was when we wrote our first kind of serious song, which was Harry's Game in 1982. And, we had to stand back ourselves and say, yeah, wow, we have a sound, and it was a nice surprise.
I'll leave you to it. Kevin. Charlie's going to drop by tonight to try to straighten things out. Be smart, talk to him, and hold your temper.
I promise. Thanks, Jimmy.
When we wrote Harry's Game, we knew it was nice and it was special and it was very special to us, but honestly, I never thought that it would have, accomplished what it has in any form. It was just other people that latched on to it. It's because we'd lived with the sound up to that, and we hadn't realized that we did have a special sound. And it was, it was just something that we thought we were just carrying on with the next phase of our life as far as writing songs is concerned. To say that, just talking to various people that sing Gaelic songs as well, that Donegal Irish has a very musical sound, and it just lends itself beautifully to melodies. And the funny thing about, going back to Harry's Game again, when it was released, people didn't actually look at it as being sung in a foreign language. They actually looked upon it as an instrumental nearly. No, I like the way Harry's Game has been around, has not dated. It was written in 1982, and for it to last this long and still have an effect on people is a huge compliment. I never get sick of singing it. And, when people come up to me and they say, I suppose you're fed up of hearing this, but the ethereal sound and your haunting voice, I said, no, I'm not, I'm not. I think it's great. I mean, what's wrong with, having, it is a nice label to have.
Kevin, lad, it's me, Charlie.
That's me holding my temper, Jimmy boy.
Our music would be leaning towards the spiritual side of the aura of it, and especially just, I would, say that it's very earthy, where we get our sounds. And maybe it's because, Donegal having such valleys and cliffs and mountains and everything, whether that's part of, I really do think that Donegal has an awful lot to do with the sound that, we get. And when we finish an album, the first thing I like doing is going home, and when I'm an hour from home, I just going in the back mountain way. I just put the new album on and I sit back and I'm not driving. And, you know, and you know, 9 times out of 10 a smile comes on my face because I can feel that it comes from, you know, what I'm looking at and what I'm hearing. And it's an earthy sound.
He's my horse. What's his name?
He's called Tir na Nog.
What does it mean?
It means the land of eternal youth.
But why is he called that?
He's from Tir na Nog, a land under the sea.
A song called Water, which means the mermaid. And it's about a mermaid that had a special cloak when she wanted to go back to the sea. And this fisherman kidnapped her and hid this cloak. And after so many years, they fell in love and they got married and had 2 children. And one day the children were out playing in the field and found and discovered this cloak and brought it to their mother. And even though she didn't want to leave her family, she felt the sea calling her back home again.
Whoa, the combination of the music and the scenery, it's beautiful.
The English and the Americans. And we don't have the terrible responsibility, though, of being English or American. We can simply subvert both those great cultures with our songs and our music and our films nowadays and our books. That's a great position to be in, I think, one of total irresponsibility.
This the band, is it? Yeah. So you 2 are shitting themselves.
Now, the English should give the Irish home rule and reserve the motion picture rights.
What's with the map?
What the map shows, Mr. O'Neill, is that each artist is represented by a pinhead.
To become a composer, I mean, the most important thing is to have a love of music. And obviously ability plays a certain part in it as well, but I think the most important thing is just having a compulsion. Because in writing a piece of music, I mean, you have to really almost become obsessive and lock yourself away. And to do that, you really have to have a strong compulsion. The music I write is, to a very large extent, a product of my environment. And, you know, if I hadn't been born in the west of Ireland, I mean, I certainly wouldn't be writing this kind of music. I mean, basically, I decided to write a cantata. I didn't know what legend I was going to use. I went about looking at various manuscripts, and I looked at all the different versions of the different legends, and I came across the original version of the Children of Lear, which is from around 1600, and I found that in the National Library. And I mean, I was immediately taken by the poetry, and I said this would be perfect for a cantata. See, nobody had done this before, and, you know, nobody had actually set our legends to well, they had set our legends to music, but not the cantata form, and not using the Irish language. I'm going to do one more anyway, and then I might do something else. I might do a concerto maybe then, or something like that. But I mean, it's not a bad thing to stick with, because, I mean, Wagner spent his whole life, you know, doing German legends, basically. First performance, or even the rehearsal, I mean, there's a great rush when you hear this piece of music that you've spent 6 months writing and just seeing existing on a piece of paper. It's a great thrill when you hear that actually performed by an orchestra and a choir. And that's the moment, really, when it's over. To a certain extent, you know, I'm surprised that the Children of Lear was so popular in Ireland. You know, I have to be honest about it, because I mean, I didn't actually write it with that in mind at all. It took me by surprise. It really did, yeah.
Father's father dug that soil with their bare hands. built those walls, our souls is buried down there. And your sons, 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 sons will take you out of it, boy. Do you get my meaning? Oh. Dad as well.
We don't know how long Irish music or traditional music has lived. You know, we don't know how it's changed in the last 50 years, you know, or especially in the last 100 years. Even the purists don't know.
And I think the more people sort of decide, as in a lot of, as happened very much in music, the more people decide to put down markers and say, you know, this is good music now because it does this, and it doesn't break this rule of harmony, and it doesn't do that, and therefore it's good. All of that is ultimately, to me, very damaging to the artistic spirit, which I think should be absolutely free to do as it wishes. And similarly with dance, anything that says, you know, if you don't hold your hands this way, if you don't do this, you don't do that, you're not really dancing. Of course you are.
You don't have to go very far back when Irish dancing was like river dance. And they used to have dances I mean, the whole social life was at the crossroads and people swinging away and, you know, and it wasn't that strict thing that developed. That's something that actually developed and, you know, and all these people bringing in rules. You know, when something happens, there's always a lot of people that bring in rules.
There's always been Irish dancing, and no one ever thought of it as sexy before. When it was performed in this way, by particularly by Jean Butler, people were, you know, it was revealed that this was an extremely erotic thing to see on your television set or in a theatre.
Personally, I think anything that brings Irish dancing to a larger audience and means that all the yuppies in Dublin have run out and started taking Irish dancing lessons, that's very, very important because it's the yuppies will tell their kids who may do it.
The whole competition culture that has surrounded Irish dance and actually surrounds music as well, not just Irish music but classical music, where people learn a couple of tunes every year in order to sit an exam, in order to get a medal at some Fesciol or whatever it is, and achieve an excellence simply on the technical end of things, ultimately I think is something that damages really what dance and music should be about, which should be about the personal interaction with the forms. The dancer should be driven to dance.
I mean, if you've got something wonderful to offer, it should be heard or seen or whatever. I mean, if you've got amazing paintings, what's the point in having it locked up in a vault?
And it has to be kept going. It's like the language. It doesn't matter who's doing it. For God's sake, go out and speak it. Somebody has to speak it, or else it'll die. It's like the music. If Anuna don't perform it, it's going to die. It'll be hidden under another layer of dust. Now is the time for this revival.
The way the world is anyway, we have to just not stick to too many rules sometimes to make things interesting and to be able to open up and, you know, reach out to people. It's really, really vital to kind of, you know, just be open towards all the aspects of Irish music.
Riverdance tapped into a deep well of emotion in this country, in Ireland, but it's been very interesting to see what's happened in England. The single was number 9 in the English pop charts last week and is still selling very strongly. It looks like the stage show, the Dublin stage show Riverdance, which was such a huge success, will transfer to the West End in London and ultimately to Broadway. So it has a universality of some kind, and it'll be very interesting to see whether the phenomenal success of that Riverdance record in Ireland can be repeated elsewhere.
I am of Ireland and the Holy Land of Ireland, and time runs on, cried she.
Who's the biggest man among you?
Come out of charity and dance with me in Ireland.
I'll dance with you, redhead. The Bull McCabe will dance with you.
It was the power of water, basically, the river running through the land. And then so for the other pieces in the show, I used fire and the sun and the land and all of those kind of very elemental things that you find actually at the heart of most traditional music. It concerns itself with those elemental forces which affect people's lives in a very simple but very fundamental way.
This is what we'd be without the land, boy.
Riverdance itself, I hope, works at the level of which it is, if you like, a piece of music written about the river, going through the land, coming out into the sea, rising up again into the cloud and raining down onto the land again. It's that sort of circular motion that takes place everywhere in life. But that is mirrored in all of life. You know, our own lives, we die, perhaps are reborn, and it's at the levels and in our relationships similarly, and in our spirituality. So it's not just simply the thing itself, it's not just the river, but it's the various layers of meaning which are attributable to that and which are applicable to other life forms and other life experience. Where Riverdance started to come together, ultimately after I had written the basic demo of the music and brought it into the dance space, and everybody began to work on the steps and things, we started to get an inkling that there was a potential for kind of something quite exciting. And actually, I hadn't written the song at the beginning until actually it was the last thing I did, lyrics being the hardest thing that I find to write. When we saw it sort of coming together, we sort of got an inkling, and finally when we saw the whole line of dancers and the hard shoe dance and the rhythm of that against the rhythm of the music, we began to get an idea that we were probably onto something. And it was an interesting collaboration between, you know, movement and music, and there was a lot of toing and froing, and between Michael Flatley, Jean Butler, and Mavis Ascot and myself, as regards to the form of the dance, and eventually we got it. And it wasn't until we got into its first, if you like, preview public performance that we got a sense of how the public reaction was going to be, and then I think we kind of knew that somebody else had taken over, and it was off on its own. And finally, its first performance at Eurovision was the one that confirmed that, you know, that people really did respond to it, almost in a totally spontaneous way. wonderful. It is. I mean, I'd be lying if I said otherwise. It was a great experience. You sit there and you're, as always, when you're connected to something, you never relax. And you're sitting there and you're just kind of, hoping everything goes fine. And then suddenly you get hit from behind by a wave of I was actually seated right up at the front. And I just couldn't believe when I looked around and saw the state of the Point theatre when people sort of really seemed to just take to it. And it's funny that seemed to, in some way, translate onto television, which isn't often the case. And, we've heard stories that people were in pubs and the pubs were silenced while this took place. And there was that cheer at the end of it, which is, like I was saying, it's kind of like being at a football match in some ways,
Boy, those dancers were smoking. That's Bill.
Voice and melodies of singer Lorena McKennett. It's Lorena McKennett, No Journey's End, tonight at 10.
Well, it's a nice, soft night. So I think I'll go and join me comrades and talk a little treason.
The Irish are very like the Jews in a way. There's a long vernacular tradition of storytelling. Both races experienced the sort of oppression that led to a scattering, a diaspora. There are Irish people all over the world, there are Jewish people all over the world, and they are always slightly on the sidelines of the societies in which they live. I think that's a great thing for an artist. Artists can come from behind and from the side, but if artists are in charge of society, you probably get the wrong dynamic.
We're a race of learned people. We're curious. We don't let anybody away with anything. And we sort of, when people come to this country, they're fascinated by our friendliness and the way people talk and relate. We learn all the time because we talk and we find out and we're just curious.
Our culture is hysterically funny. We actually make each other laugh, and then we go abroad and we make other people laugh because they can't believe that our culture is based purely on language, on the enjoyment we get from transmitting information one to the other. And we spend our whole time trying to get one up on the next person and make them laugh. I don't understand a culture like that.
Could you tell me the way to Innisfree?
Innisfree? 5 miles and maybe a half more. Do you see that road over there?
Yeah.
Well, don't take that one. It'll do you no good.
Right now, it's the Ireland of the post-IRA campaign. It's the Ireland of a kind of new pluralism. The church has a different position in the country than it had. Wealth has a different position in the country. It's more accessible. And all of the old images of Ireland that one might have seen in, movies like The Quiet Man or something, have virtually vanished.
You're not taking that into the lift.
We have to. The state will kill him.
I think certainly even, in terms of Europe and in terms of the West, I think in terms of culture, I think we've taken the lead in the last couple of years. And every country gets its turn. It's just ours now, that's it.
Talking about U2, for instance, and Enya and Clonant, and so many other performers, Thin Lizzy before them. How the hell did they get out of such a poor, small, wet country and do so well? Why have we so many centres of cultural endeavour and cultural learning here? Why are there so many wonderful writers coming out of this country? Because we think we're brilliant. We think what we do is different to the rest of the world. And that's why we do so well.
I think the worst thing that could happen is that people will put a stop to it and say, right, now that's it, we've got it. We've defined ourselves now, thank you very much, and we're closing down for the next 50 years, and we'll pull this out at Easter Sunday every year and have a look at it and say, this is us. That is the death, as far as I'm concerned, and it has been the death. It's been where we in some way decide that we can link our nationalism and our music and our everything to a given time, and then we solidify it. It must be fluid. It must be like the river. It must continue to move. Once it stops, it ceases to nourish.
Now, why would a Yankee from Pittsburgh want to buy it?
I'll tell you why, Mickalene O'Flynn, young, small Michael Flynn, who used to wipe my runny nose when I was a kid. Because I'm Sean Thornton, and I was born in that little cottage over there. And I've come home, and home I'm gonna stay.
Next, Bonnie Raitt brings her Grammy Award-winning mix of rhythm and blues and rock and roll to Oakland's historic Paramount Theater as she performs her new songs along with...
This program is made possible by annual financial support from viewers like you.